Actually, I think that dance is one of the most beautiful, partner dance is one of the most beautiful ways to actually learn about the polarities of masculine and feminine.
Yes.
And that actually brings me around to the pleasure keys, which I'd love to kind of just share those, and then it'd be great to, respond more to questions coming in. But it really brings me right back to that piece of really particularly in women's sexuality and being able to actually relax into the feminine qualities within sex. So a lot of times what happens, like one of the reasons that, some women do lose interest in sex over time or long-term relationships is because we're being actually too much in the role of giving and trying to please. We're in our minds. We're worried what our partners are thinking, or we're trying to just trying to give all the time just to please. And when we're doing that is that we're actually losing the capacity for receptivity. And receptivity is one of the fundamental qualities of the feminine, which you see it beautifully in tango and other forms of partner dance. If you're in the role of the follower, which more, most of the time that tends to be women, but not always. A lot of women know how to lead, and men are learning to follow now, so that there's a shift happening there. But if we just look at sort of the traditional aspects of those, even just as masculine and feminine polarities, the role of the follow is the feminine role, and it's an amazing place to learn actually how to surrender and how to drop into receptivity. You're actually using a completely different capacity of your brain as a dancer when you're in the role of follower versus when you're in the role of leader. And the capacity that we're using as a follow is the felt sense in the body and sort of a diffuse awareness of space, because we're trying to listen to where we're being guided through space and dance. And so that was my third key in the pleasure keys, but we'll talk about it now, is cultivating that capacity to actually drop into the body and into the sensory awareness, the somatic felt sense within the body. The way that we do that, we do it the same way in sex that we do in dance, actually. Dance and sex, two of my favorite topics, two of my favorite activities. But yes, we're dropping into our awareness into the physical sensations in the body, and just a matter of just noticing, what am I feeling, focusing on the physical sensations that are actually happening versus being up in our minds wondering what's going to happen next, wondering if our partners are enjoying it, or worse, what's called in the dance world back leading, where we kind of hijack the lead and two people are trying to lead. That never works, and that happens a lot of times in sex as well, where there's two people sort of in the giving role and there's nobody in the receiving. And the dynamic of where we start to really be able to access more depth in our pleasure and depth in connection is that when we have one person in receiving and one person in giving, where we're actually consciously dropping into those spaces intentionally. The thing that happens is that when we're not accessing that receptive quality in sex is that we're really missing out. We're disconnected from our pleasure. Usually we're too much in our heads, and anytime we're in that state, or we're too focused on getting to the end, making the orgasm happen, those things all create stress and tension. And those are the two biggest enemies, as you know, of pleasure. And that does not set the stage for orgasmic potential or depth or even transcendent experience. So that would be, that's one of the pleasure keys. So receptivity. So learning how to actually receive pleasure and be in the role of receiving and be in the role of deep listening and deep surrender. There's so much ecstasy and bliss in that state.